Now, the Trudeau government did talk a bit more today about what they're doing to help out Atlantic Canadians. Gudie Hutchings was a part of that news conference. Ms. Hutchings is the MP for the riding of Long Range Mountains in Newfoundland. She's also the Minister of Rural Economic Development, and she joins us right now in Port aux Basques. Minister Hutchings, thank you for being with us today.
Michael, it's certainly my pleasure to join you from Port aux Basques.
Listen, I know it's been a difficult weekend for everybody, but I'm hoping you might begin our conversation here with sharing with us what you've seen, what you've heard from Newfoundlanders. How would you describe the severity of the aftermath?
Michael, it's interesting because, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians were people of the sea. We're used to bad storms. That's what we were accustomed to. But speaking with people since I've been on the ground, I arrived in Port aux Basques last evening. Everybody's saying, I have never, ever seen a storm like this. I spoke with a gentleman who's 83, who's lived here all his life. I've never seen a storm like this. So when I reached around to the mayors on Friday, we all said, yes, we have our emergency preparedness plan ready. Yep, we have everything in place should this be as bad as it's projected to be. But it's interesting because we are a people of the sea. Everyone commented like, oh my golly, it's a full moon, which means higher tides. So I can tell you before the storm surge actually hit, they had record tides here, which just made for the perfect recipe for a real disaster, which is what's here. On the ground, I can tell you the pictures do not show justice. It is heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching to see the devastation that's here. I had a meeting with the mayor last night and the town and some representatives this morning. Their count now is 76 homes totally destroyed or destroyed with structural damage that you just can't repair. So that's 76 families just with no place to go. I can tell you that the town, as always, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and all Canadians come together to pitch in. I'm staying in a local hotel where they've turned over rooms, vacant rooms, to give people a place to sleep. But we're working with the town, the province, and other areas that are impacted. It's just not the Port aux Basques area. To make sure that we put the short term in place, make sure people have food and shelter and clothing, and then what is the next process to get these communities back on their feet. And I can tell people it's a long process.
Yeah, a long process, as you say, and I think it is fair to underline once again, we see these horrific images on TV, online, but really doesn't convey at times the severity of a storm and what it does to families. The armed forces are being deployed. They're going to head towards Atlantic provinces, of course, Newfoundland, Labrador included, to assist with recovery efforts. Minister, could you tell us exactly what they'll be doing once they're on the ground?
That's a great question, Michael. So the province signed the RFA, the request for assistance, yesterday with us, the federal government, and Minister Nan did an overview of what the province has requested to date. The vessel is setting sail now. I think it's HMCS Margaret Bugden and Budgel, and she's going to drop into some of these rural communities along the south coast that are a little more out of the way type of thing to do a wellness assessment and then report back on what other how else we can help in these areas. I know they will be able to help too with the debris cleanup on the ground, but I keep saying that when you walk down the streets, as I did this morning, you see the front of a house, but then you look behind it and literally see the whole basement, the whole foundation just washed away. And this is the fear here of don't go into these homes until, and again, the military is going to help with this and help with the local engineers as well. We need to make sure that these structures are safe before people can go in and retrieve their household items or go in and get treasures, memorabilia that I know they want to. But it is incredible to see how the backs of these houses and the foundation has just been washed away and taken away. I talked with a person this morning who was talking about 100-foot seas. Like, that is just incredible. So there were waves going in places that were never hit before. So when the military get on the ground, there's just devastating cleanup to be done, but also make sure that things are structurally sound before we can help people go in to retrieve some goods. And then, of course, the military will work with the province and the community to put a plan in place as we go forward to clean up this and then start the building back, and there's still areas here with no power. And then what is the damage done to the municipal infrastructure? When you look at storm sewers and wastewater outfall, like they have so much work to do to check all that. To make
Let,
sure
let me
that's-
jump in on that point, though, because you say there's so much work to do. And there was a question raised during the news conference as to whether or not the military might be able to expand its deployment if it's actually needed. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as you know, the RFA request for assistance comes from the province. Right now, we're doing what the province has asked us to do. I know the Premier is coming here later today, and I'm sure when we walk around with he and his local representatives and the mayor, it'll be made quite clear that perhaps there needs to be a bigger ask of what we can do. But I can tell you we are here ready to help in whatever way we can. And as I keep saying, Michael, this is a long plan. When you see the infrastructure that has to get put back in these areas, we're not talking months, we're talking years.
Mm-hmm. Now, as we end our conversation, I think it's worthwhile noting as well that your government is promising to match donations to help with the recovery efforts. Can you talk to us about that?
The donations are incredible. There's an incredible program with the Red Cross, as I've said, and they're doing work on the ground now. Locally, I just went to the Lions Club behind us here, where there's a tractor trailer coming from that stopped at various Lions clubs across the province coming here with household goods and clothing and items that these families need because they left with nothing, Michael. The Salvation Army has a food truck going around. They're doing stuff as well. It is truly amazing. The volunteers and this volunteer town council, I have to remind you that these town councils in these small rural areas, they're volunteers. They all have other full-paying jobs. They are volunteers, and they're working together with all the volunteers and the first responders to look after their community at this time. And a huge thank you to each and every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Minister, I know it's been a very busy few days and a very heartbreaking one, so thank you very much for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael, and everyone, please stay safe.